Our speaker today has maintained a childlike quality, which has added greatly to his genius. At the place our speaker last spoke, he drew a line 3 blocks long. But then the police took his chalk away. Philip Fauner said of our speaker that he was our greatest social critic. As such, he speaks to us with an immediacy that surmounts the barrier of time. Let us give a warm welcome to our speaker, Mr. Mark Twain.
Sounds like my missus. You may be wondering how Mark Twain arrived here in the 21st century. So do I. About a month ago, I woke up in Hollywood, unemployed. So I went to an agency, and they asked me, what is it you can do? What is it you can do 100% of the time without fail? What do you love doing? I told them the truth. I can make a glass of burgundy disappear. Now, before I knowed it, they hand me these here scarves, and they asked me to do this here magic show. Ma'am, is this your first time to see a Mark Twain magic show?
Yes.
Yes, she says. Well, that's a coincidence. It's my first time to do one. Now, making a glass of burgundy disappear is easy. Making one appear, now that's difficult. Let there be burgundy. Not quite what I had in mind. Now, people ask me, they go, Mark Twain, what's the biggest change you've noticed since you've been here in the 21st century? I tell them, oh, about 4 inches. Been eating too much of your fast foods. Another big difference is the hostility towards cigar smokers. Why, the other day, I had finished a meal at a fancy Santa Monica restaurant, and afterwards I decided to take out my cigar tube and have my cigar. And everybody looked at me as though I pulled out a gun. And then they said to me, you can't do that here. It's against the law. Well, I didn't want to get arrested, so I put it away and I went outside. Now, when I went outside, I decided, well, I could smoke there. So I took out my cigar, and the next thing I know, they said, you can't do that here. It's against the law. So then I looked out across the street, and I saw a beautiful beach with the ocean waves coming in. Nobody was there. I knew I could smoke there, so I promptly crossed the street, and I was promptly arrested for jaywalking. Jail wasn't so bad. They put me in the smoking section. As a matter of fact, the only place you can smoke in Santa Monica legally is in jail. But that jail food is atrocious, and no cigars worth that. So that's why I'm relegated to using this. Just not quite as satisfying as the real thing. Oh. Don't worry, ma'am. It's smokeless tobacco. Now, this hostility towards cigar smoking began with my wife in the 18th century. Now, it's true, I used to smoke to excess. Now I smoke moderately. That is, 1 cigar at a time. Now, my my brother Orion, my older brother Orion and I, well, I love my brother Orion. He taught me a tremendous amount of things. I'd watch him, and every time he made a mistake, I knew not to do that. I learned so much from my brother Orion that if he was a university, I'd have a PhD. Well, we would play this game when we was kids. We'd steal my dad's cigar, we'd put it in our hands like this, and we would tap it down to the bottom so that the burning end would touch our palm. And we would see who would be there to hold it the longest would win the game. I always let my brother go first because he was the oldest. That way I knowed how long to hold it. We'd tap it down just like that. I always won because I cheated. Well, now it's time for me to stop palavering and give that all-mandatory magic demonstration. Now, what we have here is a spirit bottle. Not the kind of spirits you like, sir.
I love cigars, though.
Sir, are you Irish?
Yes.
You are. Oh, man's Irish. You know, my family loves the Irish. This is a match toy. An Irishman saved my Uncle John's life. Uncle John was on the top of a 4-story building when he was fixing the roof and he fell. And there was an Irishman there. And when Uncle John fell, that Irishman cut Uncle John and it only broke his arm. Killed the Irishman. Now, Uncle John was mighty upset. And my father says to him, "Oh, Uncle John, don't worry about it. It was Providence. Providence that put that Irishman there when you fell." Providence? Providence? Well, why didn't Providence use the dog that was sitting right there next to the Irishman? You can't trust no special providence to a dog. Why not? Well, the dog would have seen you coming. So what we're going to do now is we're going to see if there'll be that Irishman's spirit right here in this room. Now this may not work because I think the spirit went out to the ball. All right. If it doesn't, this bottle will smash and break and be a mess all over the floor. Just like that. But I can't afford that. That's because this is my first paying gig. So we're not going to do that right now. Instead, we're going to believe in mental telegraphy. I wrote an article in 1875 about mental telegraphy, and I did it anonymously. You know, you could think about mental telegraphy, and all of a sudden, you know somebody is about ready to write you a letter on a topic, and by golly, you go ahead and you know that that's going to be what's going to happen. You're going to write it, and the next day you get a letter from that person just about that same thing. That happened to me with Bret Hart. I was 3,000 miles away, and I got a letter from him. Now, today, in the 21st century, how many of you people out here have gotten if I got to call somebody on the phone, and just then they called? How many has that happened to you? Raise your hand. You, ma'am, good. I'm glad. You have mental telepathy. All right. Well, then good. Can you come up here and volunteer and eat your salad later? Please come on up. And what's your name, ma'am?
Jennifer.
Jennifer, sit right over there, right in the light so everybody can see you. Now, I've got some senior citizen cards here.
So I won't need my glasses.
Right, me. All right. Now, people always wonder, are they marked? Now, I'm going to go like this. And if they're marked, you'll see movement, like a little play show there. You see any movement there? No. All right. Sometimes they say, well, are they marked on the other side? Of course they are, otherwise we wouldn't tell them apart. All right. Now, are they all mixed up here? Notice any patterns like red, red, white, 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 blue? No. Okay, great. All right. All right, now I'm going to shuffle the deck. You just tell me when to stop shuffling. Sometime today would be good. Oh, sorry, I'm out. It's too late. All right. Now, I want you to pick a card. Pick any card. Do not look at the card.
Okay.
Do not show them. Do not show me.
Okay.
Okay. Just pick any card you want. Any card you want. That's the card you want? Okay, we're going to put this away. Don't look at it. Don't show me. Hold it up against your chest. This may not work. This may be a very disappointing time. Now look at your card. Look at it. Turn it around so everybody else can see it. It could be a red or a black card. Am I right?
You are right.
Hey! The card is definitely red on the back. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And it is. Do you think I'm cheating?
I know you're cheating.
Oh, all right. Now, if I don't get this right, it's because you picked the card, not me. All right. I'm getting a real dark feeling, like Injun Joe when he was in the cave. Injun Joe was a real jackass, you know. And somebody should have picked up a club and hit him. Oh, I know what it is. It's the jack of clubs. Thank you. Everybody give Symphony a big round of applause. Do I have time for one more? One more? Or are we done? One more, yes? All right. Everybody wants to know about my life as a riverboat pilot. Well, when I was a riverboat pilot, I had to prove that I was brave and courageous. I had done a heroic act. So I told them this story. Why? There was a fire in Old Man Wilkinson. Mrs. Wilkinson was caught on the top of a 4-story building, and it was a fire, and it was burning, and we had no ladders long enough to reach them, and nobody knew what to do. Nobody had any presence of mind, nobody but me. So I says, somebody fetch me a rope, and they did, but it was too short. So I said, somebody fetch me another rope, and they did. And I took the 2 ropes and I tied them together, but they were still too short. So I says, fetch me another rope. And they did. And they'd be bringing me all these little ropes, and I'd take them and I'd tie them together, just like that, just as fast as I could, because I wanted to save old Mrs. Wilkinson. And then I had the oddest looking thing in the world. Then I remember my brother, Orion, because I told him it was too short. And he says to me, he says, well, if something's too short, cut it. That didn't work out too well. So we did it again. He always said, measure once, cut twice. So I did. And I had a much longer rope, but there was knots in them. Now, you never want to save somebody with the ropes with knots in them. There's no way you want to do that, because if you do that, the rope might break right where the knot is. So you don't do that. So you get ready to, ma'am, would you play Mrs. Wilkinson for me, please? So being a riverboat pilot, I had the great Alexander on my boat, and he taught me how to use a magical wand, which was my cigar tube, just like that. And would you stand up, please? Mrs. Wilkinson, this is your big time to make it in the Academy Awards here. The building's on fire. Just stand there and go, help, help, building's on fire. All right. Ms. Wilkinson, I'm going to toss you this rope. You catch it. And she did. So then I told her, tie it around your waist. Don't do it for real, ma'am. When I yank, you just let go, okay? So there she was, top of the building, it's a fire, and the rope tied around her waist. What did I do? I pulled her down. Well, she was okay, because there was an Irishman in the crowd, and when I pulled her down, that Irishman caught her and only broke his arm. Killed him. All right, to give her a big round of applause. I want to thank you all kindly for listening to my palavering, and everything I've told you is the absolute truth, and I've hardly even exaggerated that. Thank you.
A wonderful round of applause for our magical Mark Twain.